Welcome to Noble, a network of owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. Here, we focus on the 5 stages of business: launching an idea, establishing a business, hiring employees, creating leaders, and then expanding your impact. We hope you enjoy today's session.
That tech rehearsal we did last Friday, I think it was the great questions you asked that really had everybody decide that maybe let's just do this conversationally. So over to you.
All right, so I want to start with this. You recently shared, you were talking about your story, and you said, and I quote, "I decided to think of why live if you're going to die." So just begin to talk to us about that and how that started to set you on your journey.
Well, probably I should first share that story. I was 18 years old, diagnosed with incurable cancer. 4 scholarships to college on my way, launched into the world, and bam, told I wasn't going to live. Um, there, I questioned everything. The only thing I knew is that I was sitting there and my parents were sitting behind me hearing the message in the chair. And I had 7 doctors in front of me and being told that I will be dead very soon and that no one has ever survived this disease was surreal. And I decided to go into the experimental chemotherapy protocol program. And for those on the edge of your seat, I'm cured. I'm one of the first people cured of I 4-inch tumor here, one up here, both lungs. Of course, the left testicle because it's testicular cancer. And today they're curing over 50% of the people that get the disease with half the dosage they experimented on with me. So I'm thrilled to be here and tell that story. 65 years old, and no one expected that. So I've lost my hair for the 3rd time, and this time I don't think it's coming back. But I got good at it, I guess. Um, so yeah, one of the first things I had to think about is why live if you're gonna die? There's a great Spanish philosopher, Spanish American. His name was Jorge Santayana, and he says that life is worth living is at once the most ridiculous yet necessary of assumptions. And we have to come to terms with that. You know, we're all born insecure, no clothes, naked, no pockets, no place for God to slip the owner's manual. And so we have to figure this out. And there are ways to do it. And people that have faith in God have a source of strength that many people don't have, the people that don't have faith in God. And my first approach to it was just question, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And I ended up developing what I guess they call a mission statement. I didn't know that at the time, but I wanted to develop my skills to the best of my ability to help other people. I added 3 words, and enjoy it uh, while I'm here for however long I have. And so I committed that while I was mentally capable, I would study 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for the rest of my life, which has turned into me being quite perspicacious. I study people, but I do still, I keep my word from that day, and I study all the time. All I want to do is study, travel, teach, and learn. I've been called a good teacher. I'm a far better student, and I love learning. So I just like to then put things into a concise manner and help share what I learned with other people. By the way, the Cup of Joe, you mentioned the website. There's a Cup of Joe. It's free. Every day you get very concise one-liners from us. You could sign up at carusoleadership.com or just the Team Caruso Leadership, or what is it? Team at carusoleadership.com. And they'll respond to you. I know my assistants might be on holiday coming up. I don't remember when, but you can sign up for free and we don't send you any ads or anything like that. So does that answer your question and set you up for your next
So
question?
talk to us a little bit more, because getting to that place was not easy. There were a number of challenges along the way. And so if you would just talk to us about not only the challenges that you faced, but even what was it that really helped you to zero in, to focus on the mind, but then also dealing with this issue of losing control.
Yeah, you mentioned both my books. The upcoming book is Narrative Wins. I see that as a sequel to Power of Losing Control because I think we first have to understand we all want to control. You know, we want to be steady, we want to be cautious, we want to be dominant, we want to be directors, we want to be influenced. That's just using one of the personality style tests and how they section it out. There's many. Um, but we all want to do that with a sense of power. We want to be a doer. Doing is what it really comes down to. If you're a doer doing, you've got a half chance of being sane and sensible and finding that life, while maybe a ridiculous notion, is a necessary notion and that you're different from everyone else and you have unique talents. So when you stop wasting your energy, time, life is energy. When you're dead, you have no energy. So when you have energy, deciding what you want to focus it on helps you not waste time on all the things in the secondary world. You live in a primary world, the secondary world that you can't control. Control is all or nothing. It's not partial. You can't kind of control it. I know some people don't like that. You can't kind of control it. You can control yourself, what you want to focus on, how you want to help others, what the context is of what's happening. How often don't we even know what's happening? We have to figure out the context where we can be a doer doing in process. And when we do that, we're okay. Now we're doing something. So that's the first part, and I had to work that out. Now I'd like to say, very important, spoken to millions of people. Um, you don't have to have a life-altering or life-threatening experience to create this level of awareness. That's not necessary. Don't make it necessary. Don't put it in your mind that it's important. It is not. It's just what happened to me. You can have awareness. I mean, that's consciousness, awareness. You are aware of something. Nothing exists until you're aware of it in your world. But then you can have consideration and then realization. Oh, this means I could do this. Oh, there's a place in here for me. Oh, I'm supposed to have this responsibility right now. They want me to do this right now. Those are all contextualizations and realizations of self in moment. And then you can learn, if you're not trying to control everything, to be fully and empathically in the moment with the other. And you find out that's where the magic begins because you're bringing your full self. Bring all you are to all you need and all you do. That's it. Let me say that the way I said it in the first book, bring all you are to all you do, it's all you need. It really will be all you need.
What did that do for you as an individual and as a business leader when you came to those conclusions? And how did it maybe open up your world?
You can't find out how smart you are if you're trying to control other people. If you're the most important person in the room, you've got the math wrong. If you think you're a leader and you turn around and there's no one there, you got it all wrong. If your leadership is determined by the willingness of others to follow, period. That's the most important thing. If others aren't willing to follow, you're not leading. And how willing they are to follow. If you didn't have authority or if you didn't have money or you didn't have, that's important. Everybody on this website right now, based on the invitation, influences for a living. Do you want to influence telling them your famous story that you always tell? A little bit about you, a little bit. Or do you want to pay attention to them? Because if you listen, as the longest subtitle in the history of books I think I have here, it's called Narrative Wins. Learn to tell the right story to the right person at the right time for the right reason in the right way. What does right mean? It's about them. They've got to find themselves in your story. You can even tell a story about you, but if they can find themselves in the images and icons of your story, you've made a connection. What's important about connection? Neurologically, psychologically, socially, we need connection. We may be born alone and we will die alone, living the middle part in denial of those two facts. Fear of death for most. But we need connections. We long for connection. We want to make connections. You see a movie you don't like, you can't connect to it. Frustrating. And the meaningful things in your life you'll find. The meaningful moments in your life that you'll reflect upon are those you connect the most with. In fact, when I say narrative wins, we're not only the stories we tell ourselves, we are. If you reduce those stories to their essence, you have a foundational narrative of who you are. You may not know it, what it is. But if you know somebody who's perspicacious and pays attention fully and empathically in the moment, they know it. They can see it. And they can help you find it. All of my clients know who they are. All of my clients know how to be fully and empathically in the moment with the other and help them bring their best to the moment because they pay attention to their narrative. So these are steps that I went through in realization. I wrote a book about life. They called it a self-help book. You know, you go on a book tour and you stop in bookstores in the old days, and they want you to sign some books because people look for those. And so I walked in Louisville, Kentucky, and I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, my name is Joe Caruso. I have a new book out called The Power of Losing Control. Can you tell me where your self-help section is?" He said, "That might defeat the purpose, wouldn't it?" I thought that was brilliant. We got to figure it out. But you can have people help figure it out. And when you're a quintessential leader, which I call in Narrative Wins, the quintessential leader, they understand their narrative. They understand who they are. They're comfortable in their own skin. They don't need to influence anybody in any other way than the way the person wants to be influenced. Everyone's got a moat to protect their mind. And everybody's got times and places and ways that they will consider these external big ideas and that they have to be aware of it first. And you help people become aware of things through story because we connect neurologically. When one neuron connects with another neuron in our brain, we made a connection. You can't do that. You have a form of dementia. So when we make connections, we find meaning. We do that through stories because stories connect things to each other. Then they create a story. Does it make sense? Am I going too lightly on this?
No, you were good.
I want to be good to time here too.
And I want to tag off of something that you've now laid out. While a lot of this is about not only understanding our lived experiences and seeing things and how we see things through a specific lens, how then can our narrative sometimes get in the way personally and professionally, whether it's with clients or, close relationships that we have. And then do you have any examples of your own, maybe where that's occurred?
That's the hard part. No. Yes, actually, if you find that your narrative is based in insecurity or something that doesn't serve you, don't try to change it because it's who you are. Instead, you could say, I have a propensity, I have a proclivity to think I'm not as good as these people, if that's your particular thing. Or these people need to listen to me because I'm the expert. No, they don't. They don't need to. You are the expert. But they care more about, what's that old saying? They care more about how much you care before they care about how much you know. I think I didn't screw that up. That's not mine. So you have to change your relationship with your narrative. Don't try and cancel yourself out and be something. We all know what pretend looks like. We all know what acting looks like. And by the way, you can't be somebody else too convincingly for too long before they smell it. So don't be yourself.
I imagine.
I'm hearing something.
Thank you guys for muting.
So basically, if you know your narrative and you can examine it from a little bit of objective distance, that objectivity will give you wisdom. I mean, if you stand in this, if you see the movie Ferris Bueller, three people in a Chicago museum, as a matter of fact, looking at a painting of pointillism, dots, by Seurat. And the most insecure neurotic one is looking at it this closely. And the camera shows dot, it shows his face, it shows dot, shows close-ups of his face. The great John Hughes directed this. And then it shows the woman in the middle who's looking at kind of like this, but she's focused on the relationship between the woman and the boy and the holding hands and dreaming of being a mother. And then it shows Ferris Bueller because it's called Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and he's sitting in the back just observing it all and taking in the mise-en-scène, in in the moment, and in situ, as they say in Latin, the whole thing. And that's what you want to be able to do for yourself. Be more and more objective and say, oh, that's interesting. I'm selfish. Okay, I got to look for that and try not to be so selfish. That means I'm not making the other person important. People say, when you speak in front of 10,000 people, do you get nervous? Thinking about the wrong person if I'm nervous.
That's good.
Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I saw a question pop up in the chat, and just really quickly, even as people have an opportunity to think about their narratives and to embrace them, the question was, how then can you be comfortable? The question was, how can you be comfortable in your own skin? But I want to add, how can you be comfortable in your own narrative? Yeah.
Don't try to be the cop, the judge, and the jury. That's not your job. It was Joseph Campbell that said, the world's a mess. It's always been a mess. It's not yours to fix it. You're not a mess. You're just what you are. You're human. All the human emotions and problems that we've had go all the way back to Homer. Pre-written language, the Odyssey, the Iliad. They're all still there. We didn't fix any of those. We can fly planes and have computers where we could talk to each other in Pakistan, around the world. But all these human emotions are still there. And if you have faith in God, then you can have that conversation, not just spiritually, but intellectually. Because you could say, what's God looking at right now? That allows you to get that objective perspective and say, oh, normal human being, insecure, fearful, doubtful, doesn't know the future, lives in the now, just looks at the whole world as it goes by. Like a great writer, Kurt Vonnegut, I think, wrote, you're like on a train, you're looking through a tube as you go by everything. And wise people just see it all. They can see the terrain. Does it make sense?
It does. It does.
It just
With
can't
that,
write.
no, with that being said, though, one of the other questions that popped up in the chat then is, how does this relate to the inner working of Holy Spirit?
I would say that's each person's job to figure out. There's no You can join a church, you can find a pastor, you can find spiritual leaders who will give you ways to contextualize the idea of the Holy Spirit, God, the kingdom, Jesus. But then you have to know. That's why it's called faith. There's the old story of a woman who said, I'm going to be a nun. She's Catholic. She says, but before I give my whole life to the Lord, I just want to know I'm making the right decision. And the priest says, well, let me introduce you to the Monsignor. And then they go through all the readings, and then the next person up, and they end up with the highest person she can get to under the Pope. And she says, so I just want to know I'm making the right decision. I want all the education I can get. And he says, and then at the end of all that, you'll still have to make the leap. So they call it a leap of faith. And in that leap, you find out your own way to communicate, your own way to have the relationship. It's yours. It's neurologists today are arguing whether it's free will or not. I'll tell you what, there's discipline. And you have a mind. You have a mind that has a right frontal cerebral cortex that can think. You have an amygdala in the primordial brain that feels fear and then wants you to feel fear. It makes your sympathetic nervous system, your pupils dilate, your palms sweat, your mouth get dry, and you feel fear. And the only way to deal with fear is to act beyond it. Feel the fear, but act beyond it. And how do you act beyond it? With faith. So you can have faith in a lot of things. Those who have faith in God have a faith that there's, according to the theory of God, intellectually, philosophically broken down. Forget about spirituality for a second. They have to say, well, in order for it to be God, it's got to be omnipotent and omniscient. Okay, I'm at the highest point. Cool. And you don't have to worry about the next authority. And that gives you confidence. Is it, am I
Yeah, no, that's,
hitting it for you?
and I appreciate the piece about it's individual, because everybody's experience is not going to be the same.
When somebody talks about God, they're talking about their God. When I'm talking about God, I'm talking about my God. And it's a very personal relationship. And you can share it in a community the same way we could get around a great meal, or we can go to Italy and have a great experience. We can share community. And your version of what you experience could be a better description and a far more intimate feeling than what I got out of the experience. But it's yours. And that's what you want. You want yours. It's your life. And then you die. Alone. Born alone, die alone. So in your community, I surround myself with the smartest people I can possibly find. And I've done that my whole life. World famous psychoanalysts, people who study the mind. When I wrote my first book, I knew my work was about life and myself and developing my skills and learning about other people. I didn't know it's all in the mind. How I understand anything, including God, is in my mind. It's in my mind. So how's my mind work? Your conscious is functioning. That's awareness. Your subconscious mind, always working, far more powerful and far more persuasive, and doesn't even stop when you sleep. Okay, that's interesting. That's very fertile ground. You don't have a lifetime long enough, or it takes exactly a lifetime to figure out what you're trying to figure out. And you do it through right now. I'm learning right now. Ain't it great? It is for me and enjoying it.
Talk about, because you keep mentioning awareness. So let's talk about this idea of awareness and the power that it brings to the table when you have this awareness, and how that also empowers the narrative that you bring to other people.
To each of us, nothing exists if we're not aware of it. Back in the turn of the last century, the atom was the smallest particle known. But we built skyscrapers and uh, locomotive engines and other things, and they exist. And we used it knowing for sure, with fact, the atom was the smallest particle. Today we know there's quarks, neutrinos. Did those things fall down? No. We just weren't aware of them. We used what we know. So awareness is something we have, but we want to expand our awareness. I like to look, and when I see something I've never seen before, I go, oh, perspicacious, a word I used earlier, perspicacious. To have perspicacity is to not only be aware, but to know what's happening and why it's happening. I not only want to be aware of you in my conversation with you, I want to be aware of, like, okay, where's she going with these questions? What does she want to know? What is she thinking? I want to be empathic enough with you to say, okay, awareness. So, as I said earlier, you can be aware of something but not realize what it means or what it could mean. Many of the things that you want in your life, all that you need for them are here right now. I think of the Wizard of Oz when I think of that concept. You know, somewhere over the rainbow, no place like home. And you were there, and you were there, and you were there. What if we had everything we need to get everything we want? And we just open our awareness and our consciousness, our relationship, possibly with God, if you need forgiveness because you can't stop dwelling on what you screwed up because you're so strict with yourself. I'm sorry for those of you who know that I pointed that out, but shame on you. You know, I'm kidding. But you heard it. Why? Why am I susceptible to hearing that? What is it about me? I want to do right. I need an authority figure. Why? You're the authority on you. And you're a goofball too. That's okay.
How do you
I
maybe
don't know.
how do you maybe let go of some of that? Because in my mind, right, there's a couple of things that are going through my mind. One, oftentimes we can go throughout life, and to your point, we're aware but not fully aware, right? And it's because we are so caught up in the things that we're doing or the business that we're running, or we got to run here to somebody's soccer practice or whatever it is. We are so caught up that we miss the small things that doesn't allow us to be fully aware. Yet at the same time, when we start to become aware of whatever the habits are that interfere with all of that, then it's like, well, how do I slowly but surely let go of some of those things so I can fully be engaged?
I think you have to enough have faith in yourself, not just in a higher power, but in yourself. Because well, you have to know yourself first. Let me say this. Um, Aristotle talks about the knowledge of opposites. If you know the color black, call it a color. If you know the color white, call it a color. And they're opposites. Okay, now you better understand, you have a better understanding of white because you know the color black. Does that make sense? Um, So you can be aware of it in a dual form, but there's all these nuance and shades of awareness. Like most people don't know they have a mind. Most people go through their day transactional. I want this from this person today. I need to get these things done today. Not, how is my mind? Why did I just feel fear? Why am I angry? They don't even know. They felt fear before they felt anger. That's how the mind works. Go back, find the fear. Oh, there was the button. Why did that make me fearful? And if you go, I'm not fearful, bull, then you're a really good liar and pretty gullible because you believe your own lies. You're born with an amygdala. Did they remove it? Keeps you from playing in traffic. You got fear. And when you can find, why does this make me fearful? And you can analyze that before you redline into anger, it's manageable. There's no anger management, fear management. That's where you got to start managing. Most people picture, you're in a rowboat. You can see an island 2 miles out. The boat's sinking. There's three types of people when it comes to changing. The first person needs to stay in the boat and starts bailing against hope that they're going to be able to stay in the boat and the boat might float towards the island and they're going to drown. Other people go, oh my God, the water's cold and there's sharks. I can't jump in. But I have to, but I can't let go of the boat. So they jump in and swim with one arm, dragging the sinking boat with them. When you feel like you're doing that, you're not committed. You have to have the power of commitment and know the power of commitment. We had a new year recently, and people talk about New Year's resolutions. The word is resolute. You have to be resolute. Not, I'm going to try to be better at. Be resolute. I'm going to. And I'll catch myself when I don't, and I'm not going to punish myself when I don't. I'm just going to review my day and say, how many other ways could I have defined that situation? The famous question, my friend Curtis, the famous analyst, says, Dr. Bristol, what else could this mean? I misdialed him once. I was trying to check in with the office really quick. I go, hey, Curtis, how you doing? And he says, great, how are you doing? He says, did you mean to dial me? Because it was right in the middle of his patient day. He knew that. It wasn't psychic. And I said, nope, meant to dial my office to find out what was going on. And he says, what else could that mean? What a great question. Here's another great question. Who can't wait to help me? Help is a sign of strength. Who can't wait to help me? What a great assumptive question. Not who can I get to help me? Who can't wait to help me? Because I can help them. So reframing questions is a higher level of awareness, is a new realization. You knew how to help. You knew how to ask for help. What was preventing you? You need to open your awareness. Come to a new realization. And sometimes that's why people pay me. They find somebody that can help them see what they see and think on a different level about it. All my patients are millionaires. I mean, my clients are millionaires. There isn't one that isn't. I didn't make the money for them. I help them be very smart at what they do, smarter than they could have been without me, by helping open their awareness, open their mind, consider themselves. My first question for my hourly clients or my weekly clients, they call once an hour, once a week, an hour once a week. And my question is, how is your mind today? That contextualizes that they're using a mind. It's not just all the stuff in front of them. How is their mind processing all the things? And they'll always tell me exactly the right story for years. Always tell me the right story that gives us the right fodder to help us understand ourselves at a higher level and profit from it in some way.
I love that question. That's not something that I would have thought to ask, because usually the question is, how are you doing today?
Exactly.
Or if I really want to get at something, it's no, how are you really doing today? How are things going?
Doesn't the word really change everything? Tell President Trump to stop using it so much, please. It doesn't make a difference. No, really, really, really. Okay, got it. 3 reallys. That made sense. I'm not being political. I'm just thinking,
No,
open your
no, you're
vocabulary.
good. I have to go back to something because you started talking about the water, people in the boat. And it made me think about, okay, let's drive home this point about narrative wins, because oftentimes, like,
Water.
that's everything. Yes, we need awareness, but it's the stories that we've told ourselves that also can get in the way or can like catapult us to another place. So maybe it's go back to those examples, or if you've got others, even from the example of like when you had cancer as well and planning your funeral. But like how the
I'm not a
narrative.
control freak. I was the only one that wasn't going to be there. So yeah, I met a guy named Ben Zander. This is in Power Losing Control. And I recommend the audio version because it's updated and everybody, you guys all get it free, I believe, because Chaz and Matt set that up for you. Um, so get it and just listen, and you'll hear a story about Ben Zander, who was the director of the World Youth Symphony in Boston. So all these people from all over the world were practice and practice and practice to beat their village and be the best, and then the next town and the next town, and pretty soon represent their country. And they all show up in the first rehearsal, and I said, "My gosh, man, that must be so exciting." He goes, "Terrible, it sucks every year. It's the worst." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because everybody's there with all these other people that are as good as them. They're not used to that, and they're afraid to make a mistake, so no music comes out." Who wants to hear that? Music is conceived in passion. I think that's Quincy Jones. I always like to make sure, if I'm quoting somebody, tell you who it is. The great Quincy Jones. We just lost him. And because it's conceived in passion, it's about feeling. So I said, "What do you do?" He goes, "Every year." He goes, "And Joe, you'll love this." I said, "Okay, let me decide." I get it. And he said, "I cut everybody off. And I said, 'It's my orchestra, right?' They say, 'Yes.' 'My rules, right?' They say, 'Yes.' He says, 'Okay. I want you to exaggerate everything around the notes, crescendos, pianissimos, fortissimos, loud, soft. If it's soft, I don't even want to hear you. If it's loud, I want you to blow my ears back. If it's staccato, I want to drive a truck between your notes. If it's legato, I want to sound like cream. Exaggerate everything around the notes. Oh, by the way, you're going to make a mistake now. When you make a mistake, my orchestra, my rules, put your instrument down, throw your hands up in the air and as loud as you can say,
Oh my
"Oh
God.
my, isn't that interesting?" You did read the book. "Oh my, isn't that interesting?" Sometimes with ourselves, we have to go, "Oh my, isn't that interesting? I just said something really stupid." It's okay.
But being okay with that, to say like, yep, I messed that up. Yep, I screwed that up. But then
People
you
like
can
it.
move on.
People are fine with that. If they aren't, they are strict with themselves. I don't want them. I don't want to hang around with those people. I pick my clients. I pick the smartest people that call me. Now they pick me first, but if we have a conversation and their mind is not engaged in any way and they aren't able to engage it, they just want to teach me something. Okay, good to know. I'll sit and learn. I'll just sit and learn. But if they don't want to learn, I'm not going to charge them because I can't teach them. That's taking their money. That's theft. So it's okay. Sometimes with a client, how many names do I know? Well, everybody's got a leadership team. Everybody's got a family. I don't take notes. Have to remember it. And sometimes I miss. And I go, "Oh, Sorry, here's what I did. My fault. It's okay. Not if it's their name or always or continually do it, but a goof, admit it. Now, if you slash somebody's tires and say, oh, I made a mistake, I don't think so. It's got to be reasonable, but don't try to hide it.
Talk about this connection between the myths that we have, and maybe even touch on the immaculate myth that you talk about, and how that relates not only to our narratives, but then make this connection with business owners as well.
Well, with business owners, it's easy. You're a brand as a leader. The business is a brand. If your version of your brand is different from your customer's version of your brand, you're not hitting 1,000. You're not batting 1,000 because there's a miss. You're not who you think they are. You're not who they think you are. William James, the father of psychology, said, when 3 people meet, there's actually 6 people meeting. Each person as they see themselves, each person as the other person sees them, each person as they actually are. If you don't know who you actually are because you aren't doing your work and accepting yourself, acceptance is the root of love. If you're married, you say, I love my husband, but I love him to death, but that's worse. The word but is the problem. He's not a fixer-upper. You accept him. You accept her. You accept people. And then you bring their best. That's what a leader has to do. And myths are more powerful than truth. We'll behave to the myths. We'll miss the truths. If the truth doesn't match our version of life, it's wrong. But myths are more powerful. When the Greeks had to learn history, they studied Homer. They had to memorize it. That's why we have, when you go back far enough in history, there's this confusion between myth and fact. How do you go back? Well, we can find stones and people lived here, footprints and mastodons and so on. We live in myths. We make things powerful. You're the kingdom. You're the king in your individual mind kingdom. To live for something greater than yourself is part of the secret of life. But many people don't. They think they're most important. Well, that's fear of death. Don't be most important. Just be. Be yourself. Bring that to the world. Let other people decide if you're most important. Your legacy's none of your business.
I envisioned this question popping up, but when you say just be, how do you do that?
Well, I should say just be better too. In other words, I accept myself for who I am today. Will I watch this video? Probably won't be able to. Because I'll criticize it. But I will watch it and I'll go, wow, when I say that, I can say that better. I sometimes in bed at night, I review conversations from the day and go, should have been more concise here. I wonder what she meant by that. I have to ask her the next time I see her. So I'm always working to improve, but I accept what I am. If you don't accept reality, you're nuts. Curtis doesn't like it when I say nuts, but a form of nuts, some Latin word for nuts. But if you accept reality, yourself as you are, others as they present, cat's a cat, dog's a dog, an insecure person's insecure, a bad guy's a bad guy, toxic people are toxic, run away very fast. And some people aren't toxic, you just can't handle them. You don't have what it takes to deal with their negativity. Well, then you've got to build up your own system. You got to understand it. You can learn from everybody. There's more bad examples out there. That doesn't keep you from being smart. Learn from them.
How tough then is it to let go of the myths and allow yourself to reshape some things? So that we can not only fully understand ourselves, but also be more impactful with others.
It's as hard as you want it to be. If you make it a game, it's not hard. Do you mind playing tennis when it's really hard? When you're chasing the ball back? No, that's the actual most fun part of the game. Make it the game. My old self would have, how many times in my class say, my old self would have done this, but now I did this. I felt this today. Tomorrow I don't want to do it that way. Make it a game. I'm a game. I'm having fun. I'm in my second life. I died once. I was told, you're gonna die. No one has ever lived. Not gonna be the first. We're gonna kill you with the chemo. I believe them. I was a good boy. I was 18. They the doctors. Guess what happened? I broke all the rules. With the help of God, surgery, medicine, chemotherapy, my parents, love, my friends, my family. I didn't do it alone. So, oh well, if somebody doesn't forgive me, it's hard. They got to carry a weight. If I forgive myself, then I know how to forgive others. So I practice it. And believe me, there's a long list.
Just really quickly, those of you that are online, I see other questions coming in. So again, if you've got questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat.
How do we do that? How do we get to, I'm not rushing anything. I just don't know. I don't see.
Some of them I've been seeing and I've been asking you. Others I've just been going from my list. But Susie is pulling those for us, and we'll get some of those again in just a moment. But there was something in particular that you were talking about, and it was like, okay, well, how do you do that? She's coming now with this sheet. Darn it, that thought just slipped my mind. I will come back to it. All right, let's see here. What's the connection between our narrative and stories and how other people receive us and our message? And maybe it's worth breaking down like your perspective of narrative and stories and context.
Before I get to that, what you just did was brilliant. You had a question, your mind got distracted. You didn't blame the distraction. You said, oh, I had that, and that slipped my mind. And we all want to know what it is, but it's okay. You said, oh, well, that's okay. I've got another question here. Let's go to that question. So before we get to Susie's question, did that come back to you just now?
No.
Okay.
Because it was like in the middle of something that you were saying, and I was like, oh my gosh, like ding, ding. And then, yeah. So if it comes back to me before we end, I will ask it.
Okay, no problem. I'm glad. But what you just did was brilliant. And everybody appreciated it. You didn't bullshit. You didn't. Well, so you know what I was thinking? You see people do this on TV all the time. They ask 19 questions and tell a story because they can't think of the first question and they don't want to look stupid. Usually they'll grab their pen. You know, and I was thinking back when you were, before that, but over here, they forgot what they were talking about. Why don't they just say it instead of having us watch them act like buffoons? So that was brilliant. Between the connection between story and narrative, I believe that was Susie's question.
So I'm not sure who this came from, but
Okay.
it's what's the connection between our narrative and stories and how other people receive us and our message.
Ooh, huge. We tell stories and people find themselves in it. We relate through stories. We make connection. Why? To find meaning. One thing in your mind alone, not considered against anything else, disappears. It's gone. It can't exist. You can't retain it. It has to mean something. So when you attach an idea to another idea, meaning happens. You want to convey a meaning to another human being through this very, very fallible form of communication that we have, is talking and listening. Tell a story. Make your point, then tell the story, then make a point. Now, a narrative can be a story, and a story can be a narrative. Here's why. You can say, Princess Bride is a story about, and tell all the stories that are in it, or you could say it's one story about the movie Princess Bride. You can also say the overriding narrative of Princess Broudy's love, because it starts with a grandfather telling a story to a sick grandchild, and that's love. And the rest of it is all love too. It's just told in so many different stories. So the kid gets wrapped up in the stories, and the real story is the grandfather's love for the child. So a narrative is an overarching theme. It's also the essence. If I boiled all my stories that I tell myself I am down to one thing, it's my foundational narrative. Hard to get to. That's why it's a hard book, but I make it really simple because there's lots of stories.
Because of
10
the
years, 10 years to write.
because of the stories that we even often tell ourselves, then sometimes like those stories, again, narrative wins. It changes even maybe how it impacts others. Is that fair?
Well, we think we're the stories we tell ourselves we are. And more important than anything, if I speak for 2 hours or an hour and somebody comes up to me after a keynote, what they really want is to tell me their story, because they want me to know who they are so we can make a connection. Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
As they tell me their story, I hear their narrative. I do what I call in the new book, allegorical listening. I listen for the story beneath the story. Why are they saying this now to me about that? What's really happening in this story? And they'll reveal themselves to you. My clients call me up and they're going to negotiate with somebody, and I'll ask a million questions about the person that I've never met, and then I'll tell them their narrative. So my client goes in warmed up, knowing the narrative of the person they're going to negotiate with, and I don't get to mess. My clients can drop me anytime. If I cost a client millions of dollars in a negotiation, and I've been involved with a lot, I'm not worth the money. But it's all about the narrative. Narrative wins. That person is going to behave to their narrative. So stories, there can be a lot of stories, but there's usually a foundational overarching narrative. A leader's job is to create that narrative, because that's what I attach to. Why do you work here? It should be the same answer as I go down the list. It should be under that narrative umbrella. And and picture a triangle, if the lead person in the organization is at the top and they tell a story of what they think it is, and that story is blue, and then the people underneath them, say their leadership team, they tell the story of who we are as a brand and a company, and that's blue. That's all good. As you go down the pyramid to all the other people in the organization, that blue is going to fade. And pretty soon there's no blue. Okay, we don't have a strong enough foundational narrative, and we're not communicating it with the right stories at the right time. Tell the right story to the right time, at the right time, to the right person in the right way, for the right reason. And that's a leader's job. And if you know the narrative of the people on that level, and the people on that level, and the people on that level, what's important to them, you can speak to their narrative, and you made a what connection, and now they have meaning in that, they can find their meaning in the church. They can find their meaning in giving. They can find their meaning in what Matt and Chaz did. Let's bring some people together, hire people to teach, and let's all learn and be smarter than that guy because he only knows what he knows. He doesn't know what he knows plus what I know.
I think that demonstrates the power of not just hearing, but listening and really zeroing in on others. Final thoughts as we get ready to wrap this up here, and whatever you feel like you may want to share with people.
Let me share this. There are some people that think I'm talking to them right now and are thinking about a specific situation in their business or workplace. This is an inaugural partnership. This is a very, very big event. I want it to be a smashing success. I want stories to come back to Matt and Chaz that say, if it wasn't for that, this wouldn't have happened. So I'm going to do something I've never done. This is my phone number, 734-692-0544. That's my office number. Don't call me to sell me something. Don't call me to chat. If you have something you think I can help with, my assistant's name is Libby. She's a sweetheart. Tell her you saw me on this program, and she'll put you on the schedule somehow. What we'll do, I have to tell her about this. So don't, she's gonna wonder what the heck's going on. You gave out yeah, I gave out my phone number once. You have one shot. That's it. Not a year from now. And if I can help, tell me the story. Let me talk about it with you. And if that helps, free. Hang up. Go learn. Go apply what you learned. I'm not selling. Free. And if we change people, remember, bring all you are to all you do. It'll be all you need. And if you read the book or listen to the book first, you're going to get an excerpt from the new book coming up. Sign up on the website, get the Cup of Joes if you want. It's okay. By the way, if there's 100 people on this and 100 books sell, how much do you finance people think my life's going to change? So, what's most important? That this time we spent together makes a difference. And it can happen without you calling me, contacting me, or doing anything at all, just because you had a realization about something that you were aware of that helps you think differently about yourself. Victory. Then let Chaz and Matt know, because they would love to hear that. And all the people that pulled this together, I want to thank everybody so much. You guys are brave to do this. You trusted me. Thank you for that trust. I really appreciate it. And Chaz, it was your phone call in the beginning. And I said, yes, I'll be there. I'll be there. Yes. Figure all the rest out. And it was, I don't know, months and months later, you called me up. Well, I think we figured it out. I went, yes. And here we are because of a thought, an idea, and a phone call. You reached out. Made a difference. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for letting me help everybody. I really appreciate all the people who did all the work for this. This was easy and fun. You guys worked. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining.